Hello team and welcome back to the channel. So before we start with the video, I would request you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There are lots of amazing hands-on videos on DevOps as well as on cloud DevOps. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, talking about the most awaited video on the channel, that is complete corporate CI/CD pipeline. Okay, and this video we are going to do everything from scratch so that even if you are a developer in DevOps, still you can implement the whole thing. Okay, that means we are going to set up our own infrastructure, configure servers, set up tools, create Kubernetes cluster, right? We are going to create new private repository for source code, push the source code, write pipeline, get notified, and monitor the application. Okay, so let me explain you the real flow, how we are going to proceed. So okay, let us understand a scenario. We have an application and that application belongs to a client. Okay, client says I want to add some new feature. For example, client says I want to change the background color of the application. So that is like new feature, right? So client, what he is going to do, he is going to create a Jira task or Jira ticket. That ticket will contain detailed information about what changes needs to be done or what features needs to be added in the application. So that ticket will be assigned to a developer. Okay, that developer is going to write the source code, and that source code he is going to test in his local machine. If the source code is running fine, then he is going to push the new changes to the GitHub repository that contains the actual source code. Once those changes are pushed into GitHub repository along with the source code, then as a DevOps engineer, I will start writing the pipeline. Okay, for writing the pipeline, I'm going to use Jenkins. Okay, so in Jenkins, first stage going to be compilation of the source code. This compilation is done to find out if there is any syntax based errors in the pipeline or not. Okay, after that is successful, we are going to move to next stage, which is running of the unit test cases. So we are going to run the test cases to test the functionality of the code. After that, we are going to perform Sonar cube code quality check. Now code quality check is done to find out if if there are bugs, issues, or code smell or vulnerability inside the source code. Less those things are inside our source code, better is the quality. Okay, after that, we are going to perform a vulnerability scan on our source code to find out if there is any sensitive data, or also this Trivy tool is going to scan the dependencies of the application, if they are vulnerable, if they are outdated, or any other issue, and it's going to generate a report. Now, generally on YouTube, people usually like run the command to generate the report inside the console log. So it's not a good practice because we cannot analyze it properly. So in order to avoid this situation, we are going to create the report in a specific format and export the report in a third-party file. Okay, maybe in HTML or text file or anything that is like relevant. After that, we are going to build the application or package the application to get the application artifact. Now this application artifact we are going to publish to Nexus repository so that we can properly do release management with different versions of the artifact. Okay, after that, once we have the artifact ready, we are going to build the Docker image and tag it properly. Okay, tagging is done basically to define different versions of the Docker image. After that, we are going to use Trivy again, which is one of the most versatile tool in DevOps, and using this Trivy tool we are going to scan the Docker image to find out vulnerabilities in the containers. Okay, after that, we are going to push the Docker image to Docker Hub repository, be it private or be it public, that depends on the project. After that, we are going to deploy the application, right? But before that, we should make sure that our Kubernetes cluster is secure. So for that, we are going to use a tool known as Kube Audit that is going to scan the Kubernetes cluster and let us know if there are any specific issues in the cluster. Okay, and final stage would be to deploy the application to Kubernetes cluster, and then we are going to verify the deployment if deployment is successful or not, right? After that, last stage in our pipeline is going to be mail notification. We are supposed to receive the mail notification if pipeline is success, if pipeline is failed. Okay, and finally, once the application is deployed, then we are going to monitor the application. Now monitoring will be done in two ways. First, we are going to monitor basically website level monitoring using a black box exporter to find out how is the traffic on the website is up or not, those kind of information, and those monitoring results we can see inside Grafana. Also, in order to teach you about the system level monitoring, basically to find out if there is like how much CPU is being used, how much RAM is being used. So I'm going to monitor my Jenkins for that. Okay, so for Jenkins I'm going to use node exporter for monitoring. Okay, so this whole process I'm going to teach you from scratch and implement it at the same time. Okay, and as I mentioned again, all the scripts, command and complete documentation will be in the Telegram group, so do not miss to join. Okay, now yeah, so with that being said, let's get started with the hands-on. Okay team, one more thing. So batch 4 has started, and if you're interested in learning from scratch, you can enroll to it. The cost is somewhere around 6500 after using the coupon batch 4. Okay, and in this batch 4 we are going to cover everything from scratch. Course duration is 2 months, and you will be having access to batch 3 recordings also, so you can watch those videos as well from this beginning itself. Okay, we are going to have live sessions on weekends, and on weekdays I'm going to upload custom recorded videos for you. Okay, so yeah, check it out, links will be in the description. Okay team, so first thing that we need to get started is like basically decide in what direction we are going to move on. Okay, so let me explain you what we are going to do basically. So we are going to proceed in multiple phases. Okay, so phase 1, let's talk about phase 1. So in phase 1, what we are going to do, first of all, we need to have a network environment. The reason for having a separate network environment is that so that all the resources that we are going to work with, all the applications that we are going to deploy, all those things should be private. Okay, they should be in isolated environment so that no outside entity should be able to access it. Thirdly, we are going to make sure that deployment and everything is secure. These things we are going to do. Next up, we are going to have a Kubernetes cluster or any other deployment cluster where we are going to deploy our application. Okay, so that also we are going to set up. Thirdly, we are going to create multiple virtual machines. This virtual machine should also be created within a secure network, and on these virtual machines we are going to set up different servers and tools. So servers we are going to set up like a Sonar server, Nexus server. Tools like we are going to set up Jenkins, right? And finally, we are going to install monitoring tools, which will be used for monitoring the application that we deploy, right? So this will be the part of our phase 1 where we are going to set up the whole infrastructure. Okay, talking about phase 2. So in phase 2, we are going to create a Git repository. Okay, and this Git repository should be private so that no outside entity should be able to access it. Okay, so second is we are creating a Git repository. After that, we are going to push our source code to it. Okay, once we have pushed our source code, we should be making sure that whatever we have pushed, it should be visible to us. Okay, visible in repository. So that should be phase 2. Phase 3. So when we talk about phase 3, in this we are going to start working with the CI and CD pipeline. Okay, and when we are doing this, we need to make sure that side by side we are following the best practices, and also we are taking security measures. So basically we need to make sure that we are taking security measures so that everything is secure and correctly done. Okay, so yeah, and this will be in phase 3. And phase 3 we are also going to configure mail notification, so that if our pipeline is success or failed, we should be able to receive email notification that this is the status of our pipeline. Okay, and here itself, after everything is done, we are before mail notification, our deployment of the application will be done. Okay, now one step actually I missed in my phase 1. So once we create this Kubernetes cluster, we are also going to scan it for vulnerabilities or issues. Okay, so we are going to use a security tool for this. Okay, as I mentioned, everything that we are going to do, we need to make sure that everything is secure and private. Okay, coming down to phase 3. Yeah, phase 3 is done. Now phase 4. So in phase 4, we are going to set up monitoring tools, and we are going to monitor the application, right? Now monitoring can be done on two levels. One is system level In system level, we can monitor things like CPU, we can monitor things like RAM. Okay, these kind of things we can monitor, and that is system level monitor. Second kind of monitoring we can do will be website level. Okay, where basically we can monitor traffic, how much traffic is coming, those kind of information we can monitor. Okay, so these two kind of monitoring we are going to do, and this will be the 4 phases that we are going to follow, right? So now with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so, and as I mentioned, everything we are going to do from scratch, so make sure you don't miss anything. Okay, let me keep this pen tab separately so I can work properly. Yeah, okay. So first thing that you need to do, you need to make sure that you have an AWS account and you are logged in, and make sure that you have selected the region which is nearer to you. For example, for me, mobile location is the nearest to me. Okay. Now, talking about, as I mentioned, we are going to make everything, we need to make sure that we have a private network environment, right? So basically, for that, what you need to do, you can search here as VPC, which is virtual private cloud. Okay, you can open it. So yeah, if I open this VPC, as of now, you can see this is a default private virtual private cloud for me that exists. But in companies, as per the instructions in which environment we need to create, we can click on create VPC and create our own environment. Okay, for me, I'm going to use the default one, and in your account also there should be one default VPC which you can use. You can just make sure that you are naming it correctly so that you can identify afterwards. Okay, and you don't need to change anything in this. You can just go with default, because yeah, everyone can have their private. This is also a private one, so we are going to go and use this. Okay, moving forward, we can go to EC2. Now, whatever virtual machines that we are going to create, we need to make sure that we define how much it should be accessible from outside. For that, we can go to security groups. So in security group, basically this is a kind of firewall for our resources. Okay, so either you can create a new one, or you can simply use the default one, but in default one also we need to make some changes. Okay, for example, for me, this is the security group that I'm using, the primary one. Okay, and let me show you the ports that needs to be opened. Okay, so you can take a screenshot of this and you can understand, okay, these are the ports that you need to open in your security group. Okay, let me explain you certain ports that I have opened that are mandatory for me. Okay, 30,000 to 32,767. This is a range that I have opened because when we use virtual machines as a Kubernetes cluster, so this is the range that will be used for deployment of applications. Then we have port 465. Now 465 port, it is going to be used when we want to send mail notification from our Jenkins pipeline to ourselves on our Gmail address. Then for that, this will be needed. Then we have 6443. Now 6443 is required when you set up your Kubernetes cluster. At that time, this will be needed. Then we have SSH. Now when you create virtual machines and you want to access those virtual machines, then that is done through port 22. Okay. Then we have for HTTPS 443 and for HTTP, which is 80. Then I have opened the range of port 3000 to 10,000 because whenever I work with any applications, most of them can be easily deployed within this range, 3000 to 10,000. Okay, so this is the range that I have opened. Then we have port range. Okay, this is another SMTP server, for when we want to send email notifications over Gmail, we are using 465. But in general, in companies, they have this port 25 which they use. Okay, I have just opened it, but we are not going to use it. Okay, so these are the range that these are the ports that you need to open in your security group. Okay, now once this is done, then what we can do, we can create multiple virtual machines which we are going to use. So first, let's do one thing. Let us create one second, let me create new virtual machines. So first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create 3 virtual machines for our Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so for Kubernetes cluster, also team, Kubernetes steps that were existing for installation of Kubernetes, it has been some issues occurring everywhere. So recently, only last night, I just fixed it, and yeah, that is working fine now. Okay, so I'm going to take the virtual machine Ubuntu Server 20.04. Here I'm going to take 8 GB, or maybe we can just go with 4 also, because it is also more than enough. Okay, and here you can select the key. If you don't have the key pre-existing, you can click on create new key pair, provide a name, and click on create new key pair. Now this key pair, as soon as you click on create, it will be downloaded on your local system. Okay, this key pair that I have, it is also available on my local system. Now security group that I explained you to open specific ports, so you need to select those from here. Okay, you can see this is the launch wizard that I was showing you. This is the security group that I showed. Okay, configure space. So for storage, I'm going to go with 25. Click on launch instance. Now what I'm going to do, let me put it in this. So let me name them immediately. So first will be master node. Okay. Second will be slave node, slave 1, and third will be slave 2. Okay. So this is done. Now one by one, what we are going to do, we are going to configure all of them. Okay. So first of all, let's do one thing, copy the public IP address of master node. Now you need to make sure that you have one tool installed, which is 𝗦𝘁𝗶𝗴. Okay. You can download the home edition, which is completely free. You can download it. This is the best tool when you want to work with any virtual machines, Windows, Linux, or any kind of virtual machine. You can just work with it. Okay. So I have installed on my system. I will open it. As of now, no changes have been done. Okay. Now, in order to connect to your virtual machine that you have created, you need to click on session. Okay. Before that, one more thing I'll tell you, which will help you a lot. So make sure you go to settings, then configuration. Okay. SSH, and here you see this option SSH keep alive. Make sure that you have checked it, because if you don't, then your virtual machines, if you leave it like for unattended for some time, it will be disconnected from here. So make sure that SSH keep alive is on. Next thing, click on session, click on SSH, then the public IP address that we have copied for our master node. And since it is a virtual machine of Ubuntu kind, so username will be by default Ubuntu. Okay, so I have wrote that. Now, in order to connect to that virtual machine using a private key, I am going to click on advanced SSH settings, use private key, click on this to browse, and this key that I have, as I mentioned you, once you create key pair, it will be downloaded on your local. So this is on my local, right? Click on open, click on OK. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to rename it so that I can identify later. Okay. So this I'm going to call as master, and color I'm going to give it as blue. Okay. And let me just close this. Now quickly I'm going to create a duplicate of it and rename it to slave 1. Okay. And for slave 1, the IP address we need to change, which will be, if I go to instances, running instance, we have slave 1, right? So I'll copy this, copy the public IP address and paste it here. Okay. Click OK. Now this is also connected. Now again, I'll create a duplicate session, rename this. This will be slave 2. Okay. And we need to change the public IP address. So I'll go here, instances, slave 2 is this one, copy this and paste it here. Okay. So all these 3 VMs have been connected. Now let's open them one by one, double clicking on them. Okay. So next up, what we need to do, let's become a root user on all of them. Clear the screen on all of them, and now we need to run commands to install Kubernetes cluster. So as I mentioned, I have just corrected everything last night only, so it should be working fine now. Okay. So see, like we have multiple commands, these many commands we need to run. So running them one by one, it will be a little hectic, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run them in groups. So till here, I'm going to run them in one group. Okay. For that, let me increase the size also so that you can see. I'm going to create a file, a shell script basically, 1.sh. Okay. And I'm going to paste that all the commands that I have copied. Okay. Then I'll save this file, wq. And now in order to make sure that it is executable, we need to change the permissions. As of now, see, for example, if I run ls, you can see 1.sh file is there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to chmod plus execute. I'm adding the executable permissions on the file. Okay. That is done. If I run ls, you can see the color has been changed. This is because executable permissions have been provided. Now in order to execute this file, I can simply type /file name, click enter, and all the commands that I have wrote inside it will be running one by one. Okay. Now same thing we are going to do on slave 2 also. vi one.sh, paste the commands here, save this file, change the permissions to executable, and execute this. Okay. Now you can understand this key how easier it becomes, because obviously we cannot run each command one by one. That will take a lot of time, right? So for that we have this option like execute commands in groups. Okay. vi.one.sh first. This is for slave 2. Paste the commands here and save this, and provide the permissions, executable permissions plus x, and file name will be this, and execute it. Okay. Now all these commands are executing one by one. So here this is done, here it's being done. Okay. Next set of commands that we have, it's going to be this. Okay. So you can see basically the Kubernetes latest version is 1.29, right? But I'm using just one less than that, because usually the latest version, when you go with it, it may have some issues. Okay. So to avoid that kind of things, I'm just going to go with one less than that. Okay. Now we have these commands. So let us run one by one. These are just 1 or 2 commands, right? See, basically what we did, we added multiple packages. So in order, as soon as you add any new packages, so for them to become available for usage, you need to update it. Okay. So I'll run the command sudo apt update on all these 3 machines. Okay. Once that is done, next we are going to install these tools: kubeadm, kubelet, and kubectl, right? Kubeadm is going to set up Kubernetes cluster. Kubelet will be responsible for creating the pods that we are going to to which we are going to deploy applications, and kubectl will be the one basically working as a CLI for us to interact with Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So I'm going to copy this. This also we need to run on all 3 machines. So let this run one by one. Okay. Now till here, whatever steps that I have run on all 3 machines. Moving forward, we are going to run the commands only on master node. Okay. Now here you can see sudo kubeadm init pod network CIDR. Basically we are defining a range here in which our whatever deployments will be done. Okay. Now this range that I have written here, it has around 65,356 or something. This is the kind of more than 65,000 addresses will be there, which can be used for deployment. Okay. So here also, based on your own requirement, you can define the network range. Okay. So now I'll copy that and I'll run it on the master node. So what it's going to do, it's going to create a command which we can use to connect these slave 1 and slave 2 and make them as Kubernetes worker node. And on these slave 1 and slave 2 machines, our deployments will be done. Okay. So I have run this command on master node. Let me write it here so that you don't forget. Okay. All these documents will be shared to you, so do not worry. Okay. And this commands we need to run on master node and worker node, right? Okay. Coming back here. So yeah, let's wait for this to complete. Basically what it's going to do, it's going to give us a command that we can use, and you can see here kubeadm join. Now this is a command that is going to be, we need to execute it on the worker node which we want to add as a, see, these 2 are the virtual machines, right? So we'll run these commands on these 2 virtual machines to make them as the Kubernetes worker node connected to the master node. Okay. So I can copy this whole thing, and for authentication it has token. Okay. Now I'll paste it on the slave 1, paste it on slave 2. Okay. Let's wait, and you can see here kubelet, this node has joined the cluster. Same thing we should be able to see on the slave 2. This node has joined the cluster. We can get the details here, right? Now, basically, when you are setting up your Kubernetes cluster, you should make sure that you are saving this command, because moving forward, if you have any other third virtual machine which you want to add as a worker node, you can run this command along with other commands, and that you can make that virtual machine as the worker node. Okay. After we have done that, we need to execute these commands also on master node. Okay. Because this is going to create, basically we are creating a folder, and that folder will contain this config file. This config file is the configuration file for Kubernetes, which contains all the information about Kubernetes. Okay, so that I'm running. Copy this and paste it here. Okay, now two final commands we need to run. So we need to install these two YAML files and create some resources. Basically, these are some network related YAML files, and which will be needed when we are working with like network aspect of the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, they'll be managing all those things. So I will execute these two commands together. Okay, and this should be done, right? So all the commands we have run, and if I run this kubectl get nodes, we should be able to see the worker node. This is the worker node 1, and this is worker node 2. Okay, if I see 71, right, 71 this one, and this is 104. So you can see this is 104. So these two are the worker nodes. Okay, and they are ready for deployment. So everything is done. We have the Kubernetes ready, right? Now, a very important thing that you should be knowing: once you set up your Kubernetes cluster, what we can do, we can scan the Kubernetes cluster for any kind of issues. Okay, so for that, there are multiple tools like Trivy also we have, but Trivy may not work always. So for that reason, I'm just going to go with 𝗗𝘁𝗶𝗴. It is also a tool that can be used for scanning the Kubernetes clusters. Okay, so I'll open the releases which I want to use, and what I can do, we have this AMD 64, right? So I can right click, copy link address, wget to download that, paste it here. Okay, after that we are going to extract it and move the executable file of that. Sorry about that, some issue is there, I guess. Okay, so here we need to change the name, I guess, and the name is this one. Okay, now what we need to do, we need to move this 𝗗𝘁𝗶𝗴 executable file. Okay, let me copy this. See, this part I'm doing so that like as part of security thing for our cluster. Okay, and final command that we can run, 𝗗𝘁𝗶𝗴 all. So if I run this, it's going to scan the whole cluster, find different errors and all, and yeah. So this basically the like a report that we are going to get that can be analyzed and used by infra team. Okay, so yeah, let it be. It's being done. It may take few minutes because it's going to scan the whole cluster, and it found lot of things. So since see, there will be lots of issues coming now, because we have still not yet set up everything. Like RBAC we have not set up, role based access control, like we have not created service account. So because of that, there will be issues coming, but yeah, it's good. Like we can get the results, and these results can be analyzed by infra team. Okay, so in this way we can use 𝗗𝘁𝗶𝗴 for security measures also. Now, so phase 1, out of phase 1 we have created network environment is done, Kubernetes cluster is set up, right? Next up we are going to create virtual machines. So let's do that. Instances, running instance. Okay, now let me create. Okay team, so next up what we are going to do is create virtual machines where we are going to configure servers and some tools. So I'm click on launch instance, and first create two instances which will be used for Sonar server and Nexus server. I'm going to use Ubuntu server 20.04, and instance type I'm going to go with T2 medium, which is more than enough for both of them to work fine. Okay, key pair we already have, and network settings, so I already explained the ports that we need to open on the launch on the any security group that you have. Okay, storage I'm going to go with 20, which is more than enough for both of them. Okay, and let's do one thing. Let's go here, pending, let's rename them. First will be Sonar Cube, and second will be Nexus. Okay, Next up, what we can do, we can connect to them one by one. So I can get the public IP address, go to 𝗦𝘁𝗶𝗶. Let's create a clone of this. Click on rename this to Sonar Cube, and paste the public IP address that we have, right? Sonar Cube color I will be taking as cyan. Click on OK. So Sonar Cube configured. Now let us click on Sonar Cube server again and create a duplicate session, which we will rename to Nexus. Color let me just take as green. Okay, and public IP address. So public IP address we can get from, where is it? Yeah, this one. Copy the public IP address, paste it here. See, since it's a Ubuntu machine and key we are using same, that's why we can simply go with creating a clone and then configure that. Okay, so now we have Nexus and Sonar Cube created. Let me open them one by one. Okay, so this is good. Now next up, what we are going to do is basically set up create a virtual machine for Jenkins. Okay, so as of now we have this many virtual machines. I'm going to create Jenkins, and for Jenkins I'm going to take a bigger resource. Okay, there I can give the server name as Jenkins, and Ubuntu will be 20.04. Scroll down at the here. Instance type I'm going to take at 8 GB of RAM. Okay, I have taken T2 large. Scroll down, and this will be launch wizard, and here I'm going to take storage as 30 because lots of things we are going to do. Okay, click on launch instance and Jenkins. Yeah, let me get it pending. Now we can connect to Jenkins also. We can go to 𝗦𝘁𝗶𝗶, create a clone. Okay, and rename it to Jenkins, and remote host will be public IP address of the Jenkins. Color I'll just go with red as we have for Jenkins, right? Click on OK. So we have created like all these things, right? And yeah, slave 1 and slave 2 we can just close from here because they are already running and we don't need to run any specific commands on slave 1 and slave 2. So, okay, yeah, let me close this. Let me just one time run this kubectl get nodes just to make sure. Okay, so nodes are working fine, right? Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's set up one by one Sonar Cube and Nexus. Okay, first thing that you should always know that whenever you want to work with something, when you want to connect to when you are connecting to a virtual machine, first command that you should always run sudo apt update, because if you want to use resources within the VM from its repository, you need to update it so they are available for usage. Okay, and we are going to use Docker to set up the Sonar Cube and Nexus servers. So on Nexus also I will run sudo apt update, right? Now we need to install Docker. Now installation of Docker can be done in two ways. For example, if I run a command Docker, you see Docker is not found, but we can get the commands to install it, right? This is one way, but I wouldn't recommend it to do so because there are certain plugins also which we may need, and that may not be available. Sorry about that. That may not be available in the Linux repository. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Google and search here install Docker, and we are going to use the official command for installing Docker. Okay, so you can search this, go to first link, scroll down, and we have this multiple steps, right? So I'll copy this whole thing, and yeah, obviously we are not going to run them one by one. I'm going to create a script. Let's call it as doc.sh and paste the script here. Let me see everything seems fine. Okay, and let me save this. Sudo chmod +x, and yeah, so now let us execute it. Same thing we need to do on Nexus server as well. Okay, so vi doc.sh, paste the whole thing, save this, and change the permission sudo chmod +x Okay, dot slash. Now commands are executing and Docker should be installed, right? Sorry, package for Docker is added, but Docker has not yet installed. For installing Docker, we need to run this command. Okay, now the reason that I was saying that we should be using official documentation page for installation of Docker, because you see, it's not just installing docker.io. It is installing multiple things. Okay, that's why I recommend to use this. So this command will install that, and same thing we can do in Nexus. Okay, now Docker, Docker is getting installed, but the thing is key, when you install Docker, not all the users will be having permissions to execute Docker commands. Only root user will be having by default. So in order to make sure that other users can also have permission to execute Docker commands, we need to execute one small command, which is this one. If I execute it, then other than like root users, also other users can execute Docker commands, right? So I'll paste it here. Same thing, we'll paste it here. Okay, now if I run try to run a Docker command, docker pull hello-world, we can see if Docker Ubuntu user is able to execute Docker commands or not, and you can see it is able to execute. Now Docker is installed on both the servers, right? So next up, what we can do is create a Docker container for SonarQube and Nexus. Okay, so for creating a Docker container, what we need to do, we can run the command docker run. That means we want to pull a container and pull a Docker image and create a container out of that Docker image. Okay, Docker run -d. -d means that we want to run this all this process in detached mode, that is in background. Okay, -d, and after that we need to provide, we can provide a name. So let's say container name. So I'm going to give it as Sonar. After that, we can provide the ports detail on which it should be running. So first port is 9000, which is for host port. Host port means the port that is going to be open on this virtual machine. Okay, after that, second port, I am providing 9000 again, which is going to be the port of container. So the container that is going to be created within this virtual machine, on that container this port will be open. Okay, and after that we need to provide the name of a Docker image which we want to use to create this container. So I'm going to provide the name Sonar Cube colon and the tag or the specific version you want to use. So I'm going to go with LTS dash community version, which is a free version of SonarQube. Click enter, and SonarQube will fetch that like Ubuntu is going to download that image, then it's going to create a Docker container out of it. Okay, if you want to like more versions of Docker image, you can simply go on Google, search here as Docker Hub. Okay, that's first page that opens. You can search here as, let's say, SonarQube, and you can find different Docker images, different versions, whichever you want to use. Okay, yeah, so that is for done. And in order to check if Docker container is created or not and it is running or not, we can run this command docker ps, and we can see Docker image is running with the name Sonar, which I gave, right? Same thing let's do for Nexus with a different image, that is image for Nexus. We can run docker run -d, then name of the container, which will be Nexus, and then port. So by default, Nexus is supposed to run on port 8081. So we are going to give both of them, like container port also 8081 and host port also 8081. Then we need to provide the Docker image name. So Docker image name for Nexus is Sonar type slash Nexus, Nexus 3. And it's going to download. See, here I did not provide the tag or version. So by default, it took latest. That means if you don't provide the tag, it is going to download the latest version. And I'm fine with it, right? Now, SonarQube container is created. In order to access it, what we can do, right click here, rename, get the public IP address of SonarQube server, paste here, and if you remember, host port was 9000. Click enter, and you can see SonarQube is up. So the default username password for SonarQube is going to be admin and admin, which we are going to change afterward. You can see it is asking to change the password. So here we can write admin. New password will be just Aditya. Okay. You can put anything you want. I'm just putting my name. Now SonarQube server is set up and it is up and running now, right? Now we can cancel this and we can check for Nexus. Nexus is also done, so we can check by running command docker ps, and you can see here it is running with container ID and everything, right? So to access this, we can get its IP address, which will be Nexus, rename IP address, copy that and paste it here, colon 8081, right? And you can see it is also getting up. But now there is an interesting thing that we need to understand. If I click on sign on, default username is admin, right? But the password is located in Nexus data in this specific file. Where do we get it? So for getting it, we can go to Nexus server. And our Nexus is running inside a container, right? So we need to go inside the container by running this command docker exec means execute, then -it means interactive terminal. That means I'm saying that I want to interact with the docker container through a terminal, right? Then after that, it basically we need to put the information about which container I want to interact with. So I will put the container ID, and then I need to put the information like what kind of terminal I want to use. So I can go with bash slash, sorry, I can go with bin /bash. That means I want to interact using bash terminal. Okay, click enter. Now you can see here it is changed, right? Username changed. So that means I am inside the docker container. Okay, I can run ls command. You can see all the files inside the docker container. We can go inside Sonar type work. You can see there is a folder Nexus, right? If I run ls, you can see the first file, which is admin.password, right? So that we need to get it. We need to get the contents of it, which I can do by running cat command. And here you can see this is the initial password till here we will copy, because that is the username, right? Copy that and paste it here. Click on sign in and click on next. New password. So I'm just going to go with Aditya. Same here, Aditya. Okay. Click on next, and I'm going to enable this anonymous access as well. Okay. You can get the details like what you want. Basically, anonymous access means by default users can search, browse and download components from repositories without credentials. If you don't want that, you can simply disable it also. Okay, but usually I just go with enabling. Okay, so now Nexus is set up, and you can see here we have Nexus repositories also, where we are going to push different files which we want. Okay, so Nexus is set up, SonarQube is set up, right? Let me clear the screen, exit. Okay, and SonarQube is also set up. Next step is to set up Jenkins, right? So double click on Jenkins, and as I have told you, always run the first command sudo apt update. Okay, so let it run, and meanwhile we can get the steps for installation of Jenkins. How do we get? Okay, meanwhile let me do one thing. Let me add the steps for installation of okay, I don't need to try, like I'll just add everything in the documentation page. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, next up what we need to do, so for setting up Jenkins, now what you need to understand that the prerequisite for Jenkins to run is that it should be having a Java, right? If I run here as Java, we can see Java is not present, but we got the commands to install Java, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this command. I'm going to install JDK 17. Do not install any version below it. You will face different warnings or even issues. So install 17 or above. Okay, so let me paste here, right? And -y, so that no prompt comes. Okay, that is the prerequisite. Second, we need to get the commands for installation of Jenkins. You can simply go to Google and type install Jenkins, and it will take you to the official page of Jenkins. Okay, here you can see I have chose to install for Linux. You can select other versions also, other like OS, if you have Mac OS, Windows, anything else. So for me, I'm using Linux version, which is Ubuntu, right? Click on that, and this is the command that we need to run. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this command, because I don't want to run one by one. It's going to be very hectic, right? So I'm going to write that, copy this whole thing, and let us do one thing. Let us create a script again, vi just gen.sh. Okay, and I'm going to paste all the commands here, save this, and change the permission, which we can do sudo And after sudo we can write sudo chmod plus execute the file name which we have, right? And I can execute the file now, and this will start execution. Next thing what we can do, we need to make sure that we have Docker also installed on Jenkins, because we will be running different Docker commands, right? So what I'm going to do, I am going to get the commands for Docker which already have inside this, right? So I can copy this whole thing and I can go to Jenkins. Okay, so let's wait for this to complete so that Jenkins installation is done. Okay, so let's wait. Meanwhile, if you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe, team. Okay, see, because everything that I'm doing here is done like properly being done, and it's like it's the correct way to do things. Okay, and Jenkins is almost up. Let's wait for a few seconds more. Okay, so this is done. Let me clear the screen. Now I am going to install Docker, which is going to be doc.sh. Any name you can provide to the script, that does not matter. Okay, and save this, and let me change the permission X and execute this file, right? So once this command is getting executed, one more thing that we need to do is execute this command to install the Docker, right? And this is done. -y. Our Docker is getting installed. One more command that I mentioned we need to run is this one, to give permissions to other users than root. Okay, so copy this. Yeah, let's wait for this to complete first. By the way, Jenkins is installed. Jenkins is installed. We are installing Docker now, right? And yeah, so this is done. Now we can access Jenkins as well. I can get the public IP address of Jenkins from here. Copy the public IP address, close this, go to browser, paste it here, and it is running on port 8080 by default. Okay, now here, so in order to access Jenkins, we need to get the contents of this initial admin password, right? So I'll copy this, and here we need to use sudo because it will require elevated permissions. I can run sudo cat and the file details, and this is the initial password for Jenkins. Okay, so I will copy this, paste it here, and click on continue. Now you see this option, customize Jenkins. Make sure that you click on first option because it is something that Jenkins knows which plugins to install by default. Okay, so just click on that, and based on your size of the VM as well as your network speed, it may take few minutes. Okay, so yeah, I'll be back once this is completed. Okay team, so Jenkins is set up, and now we need to provide the username and other information. So password also I'll just keep as Aditya. Okay, full name you can put, and email address, even fake email address you can put, it does not matter. Okay, click on save and continue, and save and finish. So Jenkins is set up, right? Next step, so basically phase 1 is complete. We have configured all these things. We have set up Kubernetes cluster, we have set up all these things. Monitoring we are going to do it later. Okay, phase 2, set up Git Repo, private Git Repo, push the source code and make sure that repo is source code is available, right? So you can go to your GitHub account. This is my account. Make sure to follow me. You will find lots of like projects, full stack projects. That will be really useful for you. Okay, so let's do one thing. Click on new, and let's create a project. I'm going to call this project as board game. Okay, yeah, and I'm going to make sure that this repository is private, and click on create repository. Now this repository is created, right? Now what we need to do, we need to clone this repository on our local and copy the source code and push this source code to this repository, right? So what I'm going to do, this is the HTTPS URL of the repository. I'll copy this. Now before you start doing anything, this is the source code that I want to use. Okay, before you start doing anything, you need to make sure that you have one tool installed on your local machine, which is Git Bash. Okay, it's a free tool that is used to work with Git repositories. You can run all the commands that you want, git commit, git push, anything. Okay, so based on your OS you can install it. For me, I have installed for Windows. Okay, as I say, it's free. So this is the source code that I want to use, right? So I'll right click on it, show more options, and you see this option open git bash here. So I will click on this. Now this will open the git bash that I have on my system, right? So for cloning the repository, I can run the command git clone and the repository URL, right? Click on enter, and let's see. Now you can see here this is we are doing this for the first time, right? So it is asking me to sign in. So either you can use either of these or two options, or you can go with token. My suggestion, go with token, because you can use the token afterwards also. Okay. So where do we get the token? So for that, you can go here on your browser, on your Git repository, click on your profile, go to settings, and here scroll down at the end, you will find this option developer settings. Click on that. And then we have personal access tokens. So click on that, and tokens classic. And we are going to click on generate new token, the classic kind. Okay. So you can provide any name like git token. Expiration date you can select, and then you can select the scope, what level of permissions you want to give to your token. For me, usually I give all permissions except like delete packages or delete repo. Except those, I give all permissions, but again, that is completely based on requirement, how much you want to give. Okay. So based on your own requirement, or like whichever company you are working on, so based on that, you can decide. Okay. So we'll generate the token, and make sure that you copy this token somewhere, because you won't be able to see it afterwards. Okay. So I'll just paste it here. Now we have the token, right? So what I can do, I can paste the token here, click sign in, going back here, and so now you can see we are able to clone the repository. Now let us go inside that folder that got created, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put all these files inside this folder, board game. This is the repository. Okay. So this is done. Once this is done, you can run the command git add to add all those files, git commit -m for message, and the message will be, okay, let me clear this. Yeah. So message will be that added source code by DevOps. Anything you can write. It's like, just for clarity, you can write any message. Okay. Click enter, and then you can write git push. Now this will push this source code to the private GitHub repository that we have. Okay. So you can see this is done. If I go to the repository, let me go to my repositories. You can see this private, and all the source code file that we have, it is like pushed now, right? With the message that I wrote, correct? So we just have one commit, so it's good, right? So this part is done. So phase 2 is done. Now let us start with phase 3, where we are going to start with CICD pipelines and everything. Okay. So before we start writing the pipelines, what we need to do, we need to click on manage Jenkins, and we need to install certain plugins which will be required for us to work with. Okay. So click on plugins, and we have to install a lot of plugins actually. First plugins, let's search for JDK. So we have this option, Eclipse Temurian Installer. Basically, when you have multiple Jenkins jobs which require different versions of JDK, then you can use this plugin to set up multiple versions of JDK for usage. Okay. After JDK, I'm going to search for Maven. For Maven, I'm going to install this plugin. Make sure you install this config file provider, because it helps to create settings.xml file, global settings file, those kind of files which will be required to use. Okay. So install this, and make sure that you have installing this pipeline Maven integration, because that also will be needed during the Nexus step. Okay. So after these 3 plugins, we are going to search for Sonar. So I'm going to install this SonarQube scanner. Okay, before we move ahead, I want to explain something to you, because lots of people get confused from that. Okay, let me explain you. So for Sonar, basically we have 2 things. One is SonarQube scanner. Second is SonarQube server. Okay, now this thing that you see here, this is SonarQube server, where the report is going to be published. Okay, and here that you see SonarQube scanner, so this is a tool. You need to understand this. This is a tool which is going to perform the analysis, and it's going to generate the report. Okay, and this report, it's going to be published to SonarQube server. Okay, so do not get confused between SonarQube scanner and SonarQube server. These two are two different things. Okay, now coming back to what we are doing. Okay, so SonarQube scanner we have selected, right? After SonarQube, let me think what I need to install. Docker also we need to do. So for Docker, we are going to install Docker pipeline, or Docker build step. It's not safe, I guess. So we are not going. So we are just going to set up Docker and Docker pipeline. Okay. And after this, we need to set up Kubernetes also, Kubernetes plugin, because we are going to set up Kubernetes. So I'm going to set up Kubernetes CLI credentials. I don't think that it will be needed because this will be doing it for. Okay, meanwhile, yeah, we can just set up these four plugins. Okay, and other than that, I don't think we need anything else, but yeah, if needed, we'll just install it afterwards. Okay, once you click on install, you can see it's saying it's basically getting installed in backend. Okay, so let's wait for this to complete. And unless we get some warning that we need to restart Jenkins, we are not going to restart. Okay, if we get some warning that we need to restart, then only we are going to restart Jenkins. Okay, so yeah, let's wait for this. Meanwhile, yeah, all the servers are running fine. Kubernetes also, if I run this, nodes are up and running, they are ready, right? And you can see the version 1.28.1, so which is good. We are almost latest version, just one version below the latest. Okay, so now see, one more thing that you need to understand in Jenkins, that we have installed the plugins, but we have not configured them. Okay, so yeah, all the plugins are installed. Now we will go to manage Jenkins. Now here we are going to configure the plugins. First, go to tools, and one by one scroll down to JDK first. Okay, let's say I want to use JDK version 17, so I'm going to write the name 17, and whenever you want to configure the tool, configure a plugin that you had installed, you need to always go to install automatically, and here you see this option, install from adoptium.net. This is visible because we have installed that plugin. Okay, so I'm going to go with 17. Scroll down, and you can actually, you can actually set up multiple versions. You can provide the name, select install automatically. Okay, and here you can select the specific version of the JDK you want to use. Okay, but yeah, we are good with one JDK version. For us, it's fine. Next, SonarQube scanner. So here we are going to provide the name Sonar-scanner. Version you can select whichever you want. I'm just going with latest. Scroll down to Maven. So Maven I'm going to name it as Maven 3, and version, let's select anything you can select, but I'm just going with 3.6.1. Okay, scroll down to Docker. So here also we can configure, we can create a name as Docker, install automatically, add installer, download from docker.com, and I'm going to go with latest. So this is done. These tools are configured now, right? Next step. So next step, what we can do, we can create the pipeline itself now, right? So click on new, and name will be board game. Okay, and here Jenkins job kind we can select as pipeline. Okay, one option is missing here. No issues. I'll click on OK. Okay, let me save this, and let's go to manage Jenkins, plugins and available plugins, and here we can search as Maven. I'm going to download this plugin as well, so I'm going to click on install. Let's wait for this, because the Jenkins job kind, there are Maven options should also be available. So if I go here, click on new item, you can see this Maven project. Now it is visible, right? Yeah, that's what it was missing. So we can open the existing project that we have created, Jenkins job, click on configure, and now we can start writing pipeline, right? Now I want you to learn writing it from scratch. Okay, now discard old builds. So this is a part of best practice. I just want to keep 2 builds in my history so that they don't occupy too much space. Okay, scroll down, and here see You can write it from scratch, that's fine, but always I suggest go with the hello world. This will generate a template for you, or basically a skeleton for Jenkins pipeline, which is going to be really helpful for you to work with. Okay, let me close this. Let me close install Docker also. Okay, yeah, meanwhile make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Okay. Okay, so we have this pipeline skeleton ready. Now we can configure it as per our own requirement. So first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy and create multiple stages which we are going to modify later. Okay, okay, this many stages fine. Okay, so first thing, like whenever you install a plugin for Jenkins and you want to use it in your pipeline, you need to define it inside your pipeline in one way or the other. Okay, so for doing that, what we can do, we can write tools in this format, and two tools I'm going to define here, Java and Maven. So the format is first tool type. Java is a tool type JDK. Tool name in single quotes, which will be JDK 17. That is the name that I gave to JDK that I configured, right? For Maven, Maven tool type is Maven, and tool name that I configured was Maven 3, right? For those who are still getting confused from where this is coming, let me show you again. If I go to manage Jenkins, tools, if you look closely here, JDK 17 is the name of the tool that I configured. Similarly, for Maven also I have configured Maven 3, right? So yeah, that's where it came from. Now, first step that we are going to write is going to be git checkout. Basically, because we want to work with a project and that project needs to be present in Jenkins local workspace, right? So that means we need to pull it. So how do we do it? So we can do it. See, if you don't know how to write command, you can simply take help from pipeline syntax for every stage you want. Okay. I open this pipeline syntax, expand it and search for git. Now here we need to provide the repository URL, which is in our case, this one. I'll copy this, paste it here. Branch, as you can see, it's main. Okay, let me put it here. Now, one very important thing you should understand that here you can see the code is 128. That means we have not provided credentials. Repository is provided, but we have not given credentials. That's why it's giving 128 error. If we provided credentials but credential is wrong, then it would be giving unauthorized or something like 401, 403, something like that. Okay. Second thing that you need to understand, support for password authentication was removed on August 13, 2021. That means we cannot use password for cloning of the repository. So what we need to use? We need to use the token that we have, right? Now, where exactly do we create the credentials, right? So credentials we can create, let me explain you. If I just leave this, if I just go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, here you see this option credentials, right? Click on global for global scope of the credentials, click on add credentials, username. So username, I'm going to provide my GitHub username, which is 𝗗𝘁𝗶𝗴246, right? And password. So instead of password, we are going to use token that we have just generated. So I'll copy that token, paste it here, and ID. In ID, you can write git-cred or any description you want, but make sure that you edit the ID, because if you don't edit the ID, it will generate some random number, very long number, which is very hard to remember. But now we can use our own ID, which is good. Okay, so click on create. This is done. Now let me close this. Again, I'll open pipeline syntax, git, and the repository URL, which will be this, and branch is main, right? Now it's giving 128 error. If I select the credential that we just added, the error is just gone, right? Click on generate pipeline script and we have our first stage complete. Okay, go back here and let us write this. So pipeline stage is done. Next stage that I want to perform is compile the source code. Now compilation is done. Compilation is done to find out if there is any syntax based errors in our source code, right? So how do we do that? So for that, see, like we want to execute Maven commands, which is visually it's like a shell command, right? So we can, in order to execute shell commands in Jenkins, we need to include the command inside shell. How do we do that? So that we can do by running sh double quotes mvn compile. Mvn compile is the command that I wanted to run. Now it's a shell command. I need to run it as, so I can include it inside shell. Okay. Compilation is done. Next step, I want to execute test cases. Okay, so for that, basically I can again write the command inside shell sh mvn test. Okay, after that, next step. So next step, basically what I want to scan my file system, basically scan the whole source code to find out the vulnerabilities that may exist in the dependencies that I am using. Okay, talking about dependencies, so if I scroll down at the end, you can see this pom.xml file. So all the dependencies that is being used by this project are mentioned here. Okay, so I want to find if there is any vulnerability in the dependencies. Okay, also if I want to find if there is any kind of sensitive data that is being stored in my repository. So for that, we can use this third-party tool which is known as 𝗕𝘗. Okay, so name of this will be file system scan. Okay, and steps. So 𝗕𝘗, but default plugin is not available for 𝗕𝘗. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to install 𝗕𝘗 on this Jenkins server itself. I have the command somewhere. Let me see. Should be somewhere here. Yeah, so this is the command that we can execute on Jenkins server to set up 𝗕𝘗. If I go to Jenkins vit.sh, again, see, my suggestion to everyone is that you don't need to execute every command one by one, because it's like hectic. So you can simply create a script of it. Okay, and then sudo chmod plus x, and we have this a name of this script, right? And now we can execute the script. Now that's going to install 𝗕𝘗 on our local machine on the Jenkins server basically. So once this is done, then we'll be able to execute 𝗕𝘗 commands as well. But again, very interesting thing I'm going to show you with respect to 𝗕𝘗. Let me just check if it is installed. 𝗕𝘗 -- version. So we are installed 0.49.1, right? Coming back to Jenkins. Okay, now I can execute 𝗕𝘗. So the 𝗕𝘗 is going to generate a report, right? So if I just run commands like 𝗕𝘗 fs dot, it's going to generate the report inside the console log, which is hard to analyze, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask 𝗕𝘗 to generate the report in a specific format and export it inside a separate file. Okay, so 𝗕𝘗, then fs, then -- format. I want to generate the report in a table format. Okay, and the file to which it will be exported, let's write its name as 𝗕𝘗-fs-report. Okay, .html. Then the path which I want to scan, so I want to scan current directory, so I'll just put a dot. Okay, now 𝗕𝘗 will do this thing properly. So after this is done, we want to perform SonarQube analysis. Okay, so I can write the name as SonarQube analysis. Okay, and now before we start with SonarQube, we need to configure SonarQube server. SonarQube scanner tool we have configured, right? But server we need to configure. So let me save this pipeline so that it does not get like lost. I'll go to dashboard, go to manage Jenkins. Then we need to go to system, right? So here basically if I show you, yes, if I scroll down here, we'll be able to see SonarQube server. So here we can configure SonarQube server, right? And for authentication, we'll be using a token. So let us do one thing. Let me go to manage Jenkins credentials. So here we can add the token which will be used for authentication, right? Click on global for global scope, click on add credentials. So instead of username password, we are going to select secret text. Okay, now where do we get the token? So that we can get if I go to SonarQube server, go to administration, security, users, tokens, and here we can provide the name. So I'll just write the name as sonar-token. Any name you can put, it's fine. Okay, click on generate, copy this, and we are going to paste it in our credentials. Name will be sonar-token. Same thing will be the description of this credential. Okay, click on create. This is done. Great. Click on again manage Jenkins, and now we can configure the whole Jenkins SonarQube server inside Jenkins. Okay, scroll down to SonarQube server, click on add SonarQube. Here let's provide the name as Sonar, and the URL. So for URL we can copy from like IP address to 9000, okay, and paste it here, and make sure that you are removing the last slash, and here we can select the token, click on apply. So this is done. Great. Again we'll go to dashboard and we can resume the writing of the pipeline. Scroll down and let me write the steps for SonarQube analysis. So we need to write the steps inside the block that will have the credentials and the server URL of the SonarQube on which we were supposed to publish the report. Okay. So from where we can get the block, you can click on pipeline syntax, expand this and scroll down. You will see this option with SonarQube environment. If you have installed all the plugins but still unable to see this option, just restart your Jenkins by going here, type restart something, restart, click enter, and this will resolve your issue. Okay, after restart you'll be able to see the option. Okay, once you have opened this, just do this, generate the block, copy this and paste it here. But still we need to modify it because we are not going to use the credential ID or for token. Okay, so we are going to remove this and we are going to provide just single quotes Sonar. Now your question would be why we are doing this, right? Because see, because if you want to access some server, we need to have two things, URL and password, right? Username, password, right? So instead of using username, password, we are using token and we have the URL, and we have already configured this. If I go to manage Jenkins, go to system, okay, let's scroll down. So here if you notice, I have configured a server name with name Sonar, and URL is there and credential is there. So I just need to call this, okay, and I'm calling that as well, right? Now so now we can write the steps, but as I mentioned in the beginning with Jenkins, that whenever you want to use a tool, third-party tool that is installed through plugin, and you want to use it in your pipeline, you need to define it in one way or the other. So we need to define Sonar scanner tool basically. Okay, how we are going to do that? So we can create an environment for it. Okay, and inside environment we are going to define that tool. So I'm going to create a variable scanner underscore home equal to tool, then the tool name is Sonar dash scanner. Again, this Sonar dash scanner we have configured in the tool section, that's why we can write it here. Now once we have written this, we can simply go to SonarQube here and we can write the commands to execute the analysis. How do we do that? As such, and sorry guys, give me 1 second. So generally, as you remember, we write as such double quotes, right? But here we are going to write, instead of double quotes, triple quotes. Why? Because you have multiple lines of code. Then in that case you can like consider the whole block with three quotes. Okay, now here what we are going to do, first call the variable that we have created, which is scanner underscore home, right? And any tool you install, so executable file of that tool will be existing inside bin folder. Okay, so inside bin folder we will be able to see Sonar dash scanner. Now this is the executable file of Sonar scanner tool, and we want to use it, so we are calling it by providing the location of this executable file, right? After that we need to add some arguments, which will be d sonar dot project name in name and capital, okay, and name will be board game. Okay, similarly for another argument we are going to provide -d sonar dot project key. The name of project key can be same as board game or it can be different, but I just keep it same just for my ease. Okay, and yeah, now we need to write the next command in next line, so I can just put a slash, go next line, and we are in the same block. That's because we are using 3 quotes, that's why we are in the same block. So one last argument we are going to use d sonar dot since it's a Java project, so java dot binary is file location we need to provide. That we can do. Usually it exists inside target folder, but if you are still getting confused, you can just put a dot, and that will also work fine, and we can close this. Okay, now this block is closed and we are this will perform the analysis, right? So after analysis is done, we can also perform the quality gate. Basically, quality gate of SonarQube is something, it is like a conditions. If I go to quality gate section, you can see these are conditions. Okay, so if these conditions are passed, then we can say okay, our code is fine, it is of good quality, right? So how do we write the quality gate? So for that, first of all, we need to go to administration, configuration, go to webhooks, and we need to create a webhook. Okay, so webhook name, you can provide anything like Jenkins. Talking about URL, so for URL you need to write in this format. Okay, Jenkins public IP / SonarQube webhook. Okay, so let's do that. And so Jenkins URL is this one, paste it here slash, and we need to write SonarQube webhook, right? So let's do that. Okay, this will make sure that you are able to execute the SonarQube quality gate properly. Click on create. So webhook is created, right? Now we need to write a stage for performing the SonarQube analysis. That we can do using this step. Okay, if I copy this, paste it here. Okay, here we are basically what saying key wait for quality gate and abort pipeline, that should be the condition false. Okay, so the pipeline should not be aborted. And here we need to provide the credential ID. So credential ID we can just provide as sonar-token, which we have created, right? So this is fine. So after quality SonarQube analysis is done, next step we can build the application. So for building we can write build stage, and steps will be sh double quotes mvn package. Okay, so yeah, this is done, right? Next is, let me create multiple more stages, so that also team remember that no two stages can have the same name, it's going to cause issues. Okay, okay, so multiple stages we have created. Now ambient package is done. Next step would be to publish artifacts. Okay, publish artifacts to Nexus. So for doing that, we need to configure certain things, multiple things actually. Okay, let me explain you what. Okay, it is expired. Let me just log in again quickly. Admin, password will be Aditya. Okay, click on sign in. So we have signed in. Okay, so in order to, sorry about that, in order to publish our artifacts to Nexus, what we need to do is add the repository URLs in our POM file. So first I'm going to add for Maven releases. And talking about where do we add, how do we add, we can just go to pom.xml file, expand it, sorry, go to end, and you will find something this. If you are not able to find this section, you can manually add it also. Okay, so since it is already available for me, I will just add here. So Maven releases. Okay, as I say, I'm saying again, if you are not able to see this section, you can simply copy this whole section, keep it on your local, and next time whatever repo you want to add, you can just add these things: id, repo name, repo URL, then again for snapshot repository, repo name and repo URL. Okay, same thing I'm going to do for Maven snapshots. I will copy this and I will paste it here. Okay, so this is done. I will just commit the changes here. So repository URL we have added, right? But still we have not yet added the credential to access this repository, right? How do we do that? So let me explain you. If I go to dashboard, go to manage Jenkins. If you remember, I installed a plugin config file provider. When you install that plugin, automatically this section will be installed, managed files, and this is the section where we can create these credentials for those kind of things. So you can select either global Maven settings, or if you are having like Node.js based projects, then you can go with JSON file also. So lots of options available. For us, we are using Java, so we'll go with global Maven. Okay, make sure you provide the ID to something that you can remember, which in my case it's going to be global settings. Okay, click on next. And now this file, it's known as settings.xml file, where we are going to provide the credentials for accessing Nexus. Okay, scroll down until you find one option, something like servers, and you can see servers, right? So let's do one thing. Let us provide or create the credentials for this. Now here we can put the repository name or ID, which is same, maven-releases, okay, and username. So for username we can provide the name as admin, okay, while password, which is going to be the just Aditya, as we have set up for our Nexus, right? This is for Maven releases. We are going to create one for Maven snapshots as well, okay. So here we can write that snapshots, and credentials will be same, okay. So this is good, and we can save this. Now we can go back to dashboard, go back to board game, click on configure, and here we can in publish to Nexus we can write that, okay. So the command that we can use is maven deploy, but that we are going to write inside a specific block so that we can use the global settings file, okay. So we will take help from pipeline syntax, expand it, go to end, and you will find this option with maven. Here you can select maven JDK specific version which you want to use, and the settings file that we have configured, my global settings that we configured, right? And here, since we have not configured any separate, so it's showing use the default one, okay. Just click on generate, and this here we have the block ready that we can write here, okay. Now we need to write the command to deploy the application artifact to Nexus here in this block, okay. Now we can write sh double quotes mvn deploy. This is going to deploy the artifacts of this application to Nexus, okay, right. So this is done. Next step would be to build the Docker image, right? Build and tag Docker image, okay. So let me, yeah, now we need to write Docker commands here, okay. So that also we can take help from pipeline syntax. Scroll down at the end with Docker registry, select that. And since we are using a public Docker registry, so we don't need to provide the URL, but if you are using a private one, you need to provide the URL. Talking about credentials, so we need to add the credential also. So instead of going to credential section through manage Jenkins, we can directly add it from here. Click on Jenkins, and now you need to provide the Docker Hub username and password. So in our case, it's going to be 𝗗𝘁𝗶𝗿. Password is going to be something, okay, and ID. So I'll just provide as Docker cred. This is fine. Click on add, and we can select it from here, okay. Docker installation, we can select this, and this is the block inside which we are going to write the Docker commands. But before we start doing that, we should be creating a script, and inside that script I'll be writing the Docker commands, okay. Now inside that script I'll paste the block, and let me remove this, and we can write the Docker command as such. Now Docker file is already existing on the root directory. This is the Docker file, right? So we need to build it. So we can write Docker build -t for tagging, and naming should be first your username / any name you want, which is going to be 𝗏𝘁𝗶𝗴 or anything you want, and colon will be latest or any specific version. And then you need to provide the path of Docker file. In my case, it's on the root directory itself or the current directory, so I'll just put a dot, okay. Second command, so yeah, so what we have done, we have built our Docker image and we have tagged it. Next step would be to scan the Docker image before we push it to Docker Hub repository. So for that also we can use Trivy. That is the best part about Trivy. We can use Trivy for multiple purposes, okay. So let me do one thing. Let me create here another stage which we are going to call as Docker image scan. Docker image scan, okay. And here instead of this we can write image, and here we need to provide the image name which we want to scan, and this is the image that we want to scan, okay. This is good. Docker image. So once the scanning is done, next up, what what we can do, we can push the Docker image to our Docker Hub repository, okay. And let me write it, and this will be stage name will be push Docker image, and here we can write Docker push. let's remove the dot. Okay, now this is done, right? This is good. So after this part is done, what we can do, we can deploy the application to Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so for deploying the application to Kubernetes cluster in a proper, when we talk about doing it in a correct way or proper way, what we can do, we can create a service account, or we can use RBAC. Okay, for those who are not able to understand these things, you can watch the Kubernetes masterclass. You will understand Kubernetes scratch from scratch to advanced level. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we are going to, let me explain you through a diagrammatic structure, then it will be much clearer to you as well, right? Where is my pen tab? Okay, so let me open this now. So basically this is what we are going to do. One second, give me 1 second, guys. I haven't slept actually from quite some time. Okay. 1 second, give me some time. Okay, so this is what we basically mean for RBAC. RBAC means role based access control. Okay, now think, let's say we have user 1, we have user 2, we have user 3 in our project. Okay, user 1 is the architect and like it has proper knowledge. User 1 is like medium level guy, and user 3 is the intern or like just a very fresher guy. Okay, so when we are working with Kubernetes, we cannot give complete access to fresher or the intermediate level guy, right? So what we do, we create roles. Let's say this is role 1, this is role 2, this is role 3. So in role 1, what we have given, we have given cluster admin access. That means like complete access we are giving. So this role we can assign to this user, right? Second role, it's not cluster admin, but it has good level of access, good level of permissions. Okay, so this role we can assign to intermediate level guy. Role 3 is, it's like just read only access. Okay, so that like even some like intern guy or fresher guy is there, he has just read only access, he can just see the things, he cannot modify or change anything. So this can be assigned to this user. Now this is what we mean by role based access control, because this is a part of security concern. We cannot give complete access to everyone, so we create roles and we assign to specific users. Okay, so that's how it works, and that's what exactly we are going to do now for our deployment to make secure. Okay, let me show you how we can do that. So first of all, we need to create a service account. Okay, let me save this pipeline, it's becoming quite huge. And yeah, okay, so for doing that, what we can do, let me go to my GitHub account, repositories, and here we can go to something like EKS complete, should be there, this one. Okay, but you don't need to worry, you don't need to go here and there, you can just find everything in a Telegram group, documentation and everything. Okay, here steps EKS, and I'll go down here, create service account. So first we are going to create a user. Okay, and how do we do? So we'll go to our master node. I'm going to create this file svc.yaml. Okay, and I'm going to paste the contents here. Now let me explain. Here we are creating a service account, separate user. Okay, which we are going to use to perform the deployment. Okay, name of the user I'm creating as Jenkins, and we are going to do the deployment inside a separate project or separate namespace, you can say. So that namespace is going to be called as web apps. Okay, so I will create this, save this file. Okay, and namespace is not yet created, so let me create the namespace. kubectl create namespace, and the name of namespace will be web apps. Okay, this is done. Now we can execute the svc command, the service account command, so that service account can be created. kubectl apply -f, right, and this is created inside the namespace. Okay, so service account or user, you can say, we have created. Next is to create the role that I just explained you. Okay, now this role is having complete permissions to like get details, list details, watch it, create, update, patch or delete. That means it has complete access that needs to be there for doing any deployment. Okay, so I'm going to create another file which will be vi role.yaml. Okay, paste the contents, and here again we have mentioned that we are creating this role for web apps. Okay, so I'll just save this, and we can run 𝗗𝘁𝗿𝗏 apply -f, and it will be this one, right? Now again role is done. Now we have created the service account or the user, and role we have created. Now we need to assign this role to the service account. So for that we have this bind. I will copy this, and let us create another file which will be bind.yaml, and then we can paste the contents. Okay, save this, and we can run this. Okay, 𝗗𝘁𝗿𝗏 apply -f bind.yaml. Now the user that we created, the Jenkins user, now it is having the permissions to perform this deployment and everything else. Okay, now to do this, now basically we want our Jenkins to be able to connect to Kubernetes cluster, right? So for that we are going to create a token which will be used for authentication. Okay, so let me do that. So I will copy this YAML. This is the YAML. Create this vi secret.yaml, paste the content, and here we need to change the name of service account. In our case, service account name is Jenkins, right? So click on OK, save this, and here you can see we have not yet provided the name of namespace. Okay, so if we have not provided the name of namespace, then what we can do, we can run this command 𝗗𝘁𝗿𝗏 apply -f, and here we can provide -n for namespace, which is web apps. So see, if in our YAML file we have not provided name of namespace, then we can simply provide here, so that the resource that we are going to create, it should be created within that namespace. Okay, click enter. Now this is also done. Great. Yeah, so next step, what we can do, we can run this command 𝗗𝘁𝗿𝗏 describe secret, and secret name was my secret name, which is inside web apps namespace, right? Now you see this detail we created, but we are here, we got the token which we are going to use as the authentication from Jenkins to Kubernetes. Okay, so let me explain you how we are going to do. Let me save this, go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, credentials, global, add credentials, kind will be secret text, secret we can paste here, and name will be K8-thread. Okay, copy that as well for description, and click on create. Right, now if I go back to here, configure, and now we can take help from pipeline syntax. Here we can find something with respect to Kubernetes. Let me see, configure multiple credentials. This one we can take, kubeconfig credentials, we can select Kubernetes server endpoint. Where do we get it? So for that, what we can do, we can write cd this one /.kube. This is the folder inside which we have this config file, which we can run, which we can see the contents of it using cat command. Okay, now we have all the details about our cluster, and this is the server endpoint which we need. So I'll copy this, paste it here. Then we have cluster name, right? So cluster name also we should be able to get somewhere. So cluster name is just, I guess, Kubernetes. So I'll copy that, paste it here. Then namespace, so obviously we are going to use web apps. Okay, and click on generate. Now this is the block inside which we can write the commands to perform Kubernetes deployment. Okay, scroll down, and here we can write, we can create this block, and this will be renamed to deploy to Kubernetes. Okay, now let's do one thing. Okay, now here we can write the commands to execute the deployment, but let me save this. But the thing is we are supposed to use a manifest files which we do not have as of now. So let's do one thing. We can create manifest files. The thing is, you can take any template and you can modify it as per your own requirement so that it becomes the manifest files for your specific project. Okay. So what I can do, for example, like this is one of my projects, secret Santa generator. Let me see. So we have this deployment service YAML file, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this whole thing. Okay. And I'm going to use it as a template for my current deployment. Okay. So let's open the current repository and add file, create new file. This will be the content, and let's provide the name as deployment dash service dot YAML. Okay, but here we are going to change certain things, which will be name will be, let's say, board game, and that's what I'm going to write everywhere. App also will be board game, app will be board game, containers name will be board game, Docker image also we need to change first. Okay, but yeah, few things let me just change, so that's why I say, see, you don't need to write everything from scratch. You can just use the template and then you can work with it. Okay, we need to change the Docker image also, which we can get from here. This is the Docker image for ours, right? Replace. And now here you see image pull policy. That means it's going to, when it's going to pull the Docker image, I have written as of now, if not present. Second thing that we can write, we can also use like always. We can write always. That means every time we run the deployment, it's going to pull the image. But obviously, if we want to use it, if the image is not present, right? So yeah, but let's just go with always. Okay. And container port, the port on which our application should be running. So in my case, my application is supposed to run on port 8080. How do I know it? Because that's what I have written in my Docker file. If I open it, you can see expose port 8080. That means it is supposed to run on port 8080. Okay. Coming to next, let me see if what else. Yeah, this is a port and this is target port. So that also you need to make sure it is written correctly. Okay. And port is basically the port on which your service is going to run. Target port is same as the container port. Okay, then I'm writing here type as load balancer. So basically this is the service type. Okay, service type can be of different types. Let me explain you that as well so that you don't miss out that. Okay, in Kubernetes, one second. In Kubernetes, communication between pods or like access of the pods is going to happen with a resource that is known as service. Okay, service is like general types we have, like cluster IP, load balancer, node port, and yeah, three we can consider. Ingress is also there, but these three are the ones that we need to know as of now. Cluster IP is basically a service type which is used for internal communications. So basically that means that if someone wants to access a application pod, they cannot use cluster IP. Okay, because it is just for internal purpose, internal communications. From outside it cannot be used. Load balancer, so if someone want to access the application from outside, then we can use load balancer. Node port, it can also be used for external access, but it's not the very useful way, because it opens a port on worker node. Okay, so I would suggest highly that we should always go with load balancer. And usually load balancer feature is available by default in all the cloud platform based Kubernetes clusters that we have. So this feature is available by default in that, so you can use it. Okay, now coming back, so here we have everything is written correctly. Let me check one time. Board game deployment, replicas 2, so and so. Okay, so this seems fine. We are using type load balancer and click on commit. So this is done, and let me just copy the name of this file and we can write it here. In as such, we will write kubectl apply-f and name of the YAML file, right? But And one problem that you might be thinking, okay, we have not yet installed kubectl on Jenkins, then how it's going to run? Correct question. And that's what we need to do next. We need to install kubectl on Jenkins now. Okay, so for that also we have the commands ready. I can, where is it? EKS. Yeah, this is the commands that we are going to run. So I'll copy the whole thing and I'll execute this on my Jenkins server. So let me create k.sh, paste it here and save this. Sudo chmod plus execute, and this I want to give permissions, right? Now this is going to install kubectl on my Jenkins server. Okay, see, these are the things that we need to do in order to connect to Kubernetes, right? And that's why we have this Argo CD tool, on which I have created a masterclass also. Okay, so yeah, this is done, and now this should be, our command should be working fine. Next step that I want to perform is basically check if the deployment is done. Okay, so that we can do using another command, which will be kubectl get pods sh kubectl get svc. Also we can define here itself key we want to check the pods inside web apps, and yeah, same thing for this. Yeah, even though we have written the namespace here, but just for knowledge purpose, so that everyone knows, I am writing it here. Okay, and the stage name will be verify the deployment. Okay, now after this is done, I think we don't need a separate stage. Instead, what we need to do is configure the mail notifications. Correct. Now talking about mail notifications, so as I explained you previously in the beginning, that we need to have specific port open, which is 465, right? So yeah, that port is already open. So how do we configure mail notification? Let me explain you that as well. So let me use one of my accounts. Here you need to go to manage Google account. You need to go to security. After that you need to go to two-step verification. It will ask you to put the password. Okay, so let's put, and once you log in, then you will get some option uh, at the end. It's like app passwords, so click on that, and it's going to generate a application password which is different from your account password, because this cannot be used for logging into your account. Okay, so let's provide the app name as Jenkins. Click on create. Now this is the password that it created, right? Now this password can be used for uh, sending mail notifications. Let me explain you how. Okay, so once we have created this, we will just leave it. Go to board your Jenkins, click, make sure that you save the deployment, the pipeline that I have written. Click on dashboard, go to manage Jenkins, go to system. Okay, and scroll down till you find something as email notification. Here you have email notification, and we have extended email notification. Email notification is just basics, while extended one, it has much more features. Okay, now let us configure it. So first we need to provide SMTP server, since we are going to use Gmail. So SMTP server for Gmail is smtp.gmail.com. Okay, SMTP port, as you remember, we have opened 465, correct? Then click on advanced. Here you need to make sure that you click on use SSL and credentials. So in credential, click on add, and over Jenkins we can add. In username, we need to provide our email address. Okay, adi246@gmail.com. Password, the password that we have just generated. Okay, and I have saved it here, right? Let me copy this, paste it here, and this will be mail credentials, right? Copy this, paste it here, and we can add it. And now select that as well. Okay, this is done. Scroll down to email notification. Okay, here we can write server is smtp.gmail.com, and then in advance we can write SSL. SMTP port will be 465, and authentication, so username and password we need to put here, which is going to be 𝗗𝘁𝗶𝗴246@gmail.com. And again password, so password we are not putting the real password, we are putting the application password which we have just created, right? So this is done and this seems fine. Let me save this and we can test. Where is it here? It got saved or not? Let me see. Okay, it is saved. Great. So we can do one thing, we can test configuration by sending email notification, and I want to send my email notification to 𝗗𝘁𝗶𝗴246@gmail.com. Test configuration. Email was successfully sent. We can check that as well. Over Gmail we can go and we should be able to see. You can see here test email 1. Okay, that means email configuration is correct. Now what we are going to do, we are, one second, let me save this. Now we can write the commands steps inside our email. Okay, sorry, inside our pipeline to get notification. Okay team, so for the post notification section you need to make sure that you are writing it below the stages, and this is the you can write, okay, this is color based, and here you need to make sure that you are changing the recipient email. So for me I'm just going to put my own. Okay, and here if you look closely, from and reply to, that means if I receive the email and if I try to reply to that email, then that reply will be getting sent to this email. Okay, correct. One more thing, we can attach some reports also. So we have trivia report and I want to attach my let's say, where is it, trivia, yeah. So I want to this should be image, trivia image. So I want to attach my trivia image report every time this job runs. Okay, so that I can write here. Correct. Once we have written this, then we are good to go, and every stage we have written. First thing that I'm going to do is copy this whole stage so I don't forget to save this. I'll just save it here so that moving forward I can just share it to you as well. Okay, and we can run this pipeline and let's see. Okay, some syntax based error is there. Environment, this spelling wrong is there. Let me correct it. Okay, and yeah, it should be good now. So let us try again. Pipeline has started, and this might take a little bit of time because we are running it for the first time, and it is going to install all the tools that we have mentioned in our pipeline. Okay, so yeah, let's wait, and once this is complete I'll be back. Okay team, so seems the pipeline is successfully executed and we have everything ready. We have 6 test cases also passed, and the pipeline is quite big, it seems. But yeah, this is the proper way to do something, correct? And now talking about what things did we generate as part of our artifacts. You can see here we have jar file as an artifact, we have pom file as an artifact. Also, if I open this file, we can go to workspace and we should be having the trivia report as well. So we have two reports. One is trivia HTML, sorry, which is the trivia image report. Then we have trivia FS report. Okay, and they are in proper format, in tabular format. Okay, coming to our here we can see we have the board game project also created inside Sonar Cube. If I open this, we should be able to see the issues in detail. Okay, and suggestions also on all the issues, how we can fix it. Great. Coming back to our project, yeah, so this is good, right? Next thing, talking about how we can access the application. So here we can see we use load balancer, right? Load balancer type of service, right? But as I mentioned, key the service when you use the load balancer service type in your self-hosted Kubernetes cluster, it may not work because by default we don't have that. When you want to use load balancer in like through default, you can just use a cloud platform based Kubernetes service. Okay, but still I use load balancer kind so that I can show you the format. So when you use load balancer, automatically an URL will be generated here inside external IP address. Okay, and using this URL you can access the application, but here we have this information also available using which we can access the application. So this is the host port and this is the container port. This is the port on which our application will be accessible. Okay, and yeah, so let's do one thing. Copy this. Let's get the IP address of the slave one, and on it should be deployed. I will just copy this, paste it here, and the IP address which should be this one, right? Sorry, the port. Okay, click enter and we can see this is the application running. Now this application is not very simple application. It is CRUD based application which is using these many things. Okay, if I try to, it has like username credentials configured, Bugs Bunny Daffy Duck. For example, if I go to login, I can type Bugs Bunny. Okay, and here we are logged in as a user. Okay, I can go to home page. We can add some information about some games. Okay, click on submit the board game, right? And we can open this. We can add reviews also. Okay, submit the review, right? So now we don't have option to delete and we don't have option to edit as well, right? Only the user with manager role can edit or delete the reviews. So I'll just log out. I'll log in again, and this time I'll log in with Daffy Duck. And now we have logged in with manager role, right? If I click on home, click on this, click on reviews, so I can edit also, I can delete also. Okay, that's one of the differences. Basically this application is all about CRUD operations. CRUD means create, read, update or delete. Okay, those are the basic operations that you should get started working with if you want to like start working with basic projects. Okay, and yeah, so that means we need to say that yeah, application is working fine, all the things is working fine, and it is able to be deployed also, right? And we have amazing pipeline that which we have created, a big pipeline which covers everything. Now after that, what I'm going to do after this, I'm going to show you how we can perform the monitoring. Okay, so let's do that. Okay team, so now let's start with the monitoring part. Okay, so for that I'm going to create another virtual machine which will be, let's call it as monitor. Okay, and I'm going to take Ubuntu machine size, server will be 20.04, and instance type I'm going to go with T2 large would be fine, but T2 medium will also work fine. Okay, and key security group will be launch wizard. Okay, storage I'm going to go with 20. Okay, so let's wait for this to come up. This is the virtual machine, so I'll copy this IP address, go here, and let me connect to the newly created virtual machine as well as rename it. Okay, IP address will be the one that we just created. Okay, so let's wait for this this server. Yeah, it is in running status, so we can try to connect to it, and let's wait. Yeah, so this is good, and uh, let's start installation of like Prometheus, Grafana, exporter, all those things. Okay, sudo apt update. Okay, meanwhile this is, yeah, this is done, right? So let us start by installation of Grafana. Okay, so or maybe first let us install Prometheus. So for installation, what we can do, give me 1 second. Yeah, So installation, we can see like we can this is the package that we are going to use. This is for Linux, right? So I'll copy this and let us download it, okay, using wget. Okay, so this is done, and we can see we have the package. So let us extract it by using tar-x vf, okay, and the file name. So this is also done, correct? So let me remove the zip tar file, we don't need it. Dot, yeah, okay. So we have this Prometheus, we will go inside it, okay, and we have all these files, okay. Now this file that you see here, this is the executable file of Prometheus, okay. So I can, once as soon as I execute this file, automatically Prometheus will be start to run, okay. How do you do it? How do I do it? So /Prometheus, okay, and make sure to put ampersand afterward because I want to run it in background, okay. Click enter. So now Prometheus is running in background, and by default Prometheus will be running on port 9090, okay. So I can get the public IP address of the virtual machine which I have, and let's try to access it on port 9090, and you can see Prometheus is up and running now, right? So this is good. Second thing that we are going to do is install Grafana, okay. So team, next up we will install Grafana. So we can go to this site grafana.com/grafana/download, and we have these steps, just 3 lines we need to run, okay. And let us make it much easier, so we will run it on this location, okay. And we are going to download this deb file, and after that we can just depackage it so that Grafana will start to run, okay. So let's wait for this to complete. Okay, this is done, and in order to start Grafana we can execute this command, you can see here, right? So I'll just paste it, and this will start Grafana server, and by default Grafana server will be running on port 3000, okay. And now you understand why usually I open the port range from 3000 to 10,000, because those are the ports something that I use on regular basis, okay. So Grafana is also getting set up. We can log in by default password, which is admin, okay. Username and password both are admin by default, and we need to change them. So let me update it by my own name, Aditya, okay. Click on submit. So this part is also done, right? Next step that we need to perform is basically we need to install black box exporter, which is going to be helping us to monitor the website, okay. So on this web page prometheus.io/download, I can search black box, this one, right? So let's do one thing, let's download the Linux package, okay. And that also I'm going to download on my virtual machine. Click enter. Okay, so this is done, and now we are going to extract it, xvf. This is done. So now you see we have tar file also, so we will remove the tar file of black box, which we don't need as of now, okay. Great, so we have these 3 folders. So now let us go inside black box folder, okay. And now we have this executable file of black box exporter. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start this, okay. That we can do by running /, okay. And do not forget to put ampersand so that it can run in background, okay. And this has started, and by default it will be running on port 9115, okay. So just to make sure that it is running or not, we can check it by going on that port. I'll copy the IP address, paste it here, and port is 9115. Click enter, and you can see it's running now, right? So this is good. Let me close this. So Prometheus, Grafana and Black Box Exporter, all three are running, but we need to apply certain changes, right? So this specific thing that you see, this is a specific section which we are going to add inside the prometheus.yaml file. Okay, where do we find that a file? So we have this Prometheus folder. Let us go inside it, and here we can see the prometheus.yaml. So let us edit this file. Okay, now in this file we are going to the thing that we have just copied for black box from black box, so we are going to copy that, paste it here, and make sure from, because we have copied from job section, right, job name, so that part we need to paste as per the indentation, sorry. Okay, and just paste this, and here we need to replace the IP address of the VM on which black box exporter is running, right? So for black box exporter IPv address, we can copy from here to here. This is the IP address. Okay, paste it here. Remove this, and let us remove the HTTP also. Sorry about that. I think we don't need to put change anything here. We need to remove this because this is the different job. Okay, let me remove this quickly. Okay, so we need to change the IP address, this one. This is the IP address of black box. Okay, so let me remove HTTP. Okay, now here you see target. So here we can provide the information about what exactly do we want to monitor. Okay, so in that section, what I'm going to do, I am going to put two things. I'm going to put prometheus.io is the one of the website that I want to monitor, let's say, and second website is the website on which my application is running, right? So this is the deployed application, so I'm going to copy the URL of this application and paste it here. Okay, now this means that we can monitor our application. So let me save this. Okay, now we have saved this, right? Now basically what I'm going to do, we need to restart Prometheus. So what I can do, I can run this command pgrep Prometheus. Okay, so we can get the ID of this process running, so we can kill this ID 2621. Okay, and now I can restart the Prometheus, and do not forget to put ampersand. Okay, so Prometheus has restarted now. Okay, now we can refresh the page of Prometheus, and here we can go to targets. Okay, now here you see this targets. Okay, so this might take some time to get up and running. You can see one target is got up and one is still in pending. Okay, so let me refresh again, and you can see both the things are up and running. Okay, and for us inside endpoints, we can see basically this is the target. This is the target, which is our application. The application is running on this URL, correct? And we can see the props also. So these are some metrics that is being scrapped by black box exporter. So this is good, right? And yeah, so now we have this ready, right? Next thing that we need to do, we want to like add Prometheus as data source inside our Grafana. Okay, so for that we should be able to see this section, data sources. Click on that, click on add data source, click on Prometheus, and here we need to provide the IP address of the Prometheus. Okay, URL of Prometheus. So I'll copy here, copy this, paste it here. Okay, scroll down at the end because nothing else we need to change, and we can see it is running fine. Okay, it is able to be connected. Next thing we need to do is click on import dashboard. Now to create a dashboard, what we can do, we can search here dashboard black box. Okay, sorry about that. Let me search again. Also team, before we do that, if I refresh this page, you can see it is like also probe is like going on. Okay, some issue is going on, and whatever is like it's going to be used for monitoring only. And here we can search black box Grafana dashboard. Okay, and we can with this footer open this first one, and here you can see the ID as well as JSON. So I'm going to copy the ID, copy that ID, paste it here, 7587. Okay, click on load, scroll down, and here we need to select the data source. In our case it's Prometheus. Click on import. Now let me change it to last 5 minutes. So all this information that you are seeing here, different probes, okay, you can see this is for our application. Status is up, HTTP duration, probe duration, and SSL expiry it's giving NA because it's like we don't have that as of now. Okay, and yeah, so in this way we can monitor. This is completely related to HTTP probes. Okay, and you can see we are able to get the results, and we can also change this to 5 seconds so that we can get the results within like we can have a refresh rate every 5 seconds. Okay, in here you can select the specific targets you want to monitor, or whichever website you want to monitor. For us, we are monitoring a sample URL which is prometheus.io and the website URL of our own where our application is deployed. Correct? So this is good, and we can have the more details as we move ahead. Okay, so this is the website monitoring for HTTP. Okay, so this is good. Now I want to show you the like system level monitoring, how we can do. Okay, so let me show you that. Okay team, so yeah, now you understood that how we can use black box exporter to monitor the website, right? Next step, what I want to do, let's say we have Jenkins, right? So let us do one thing, let us monitor Jenkins itself. So two things we are going to do. First, go to manage Jenkins, go to plugins, and here in available, search for Prometheus. Okay, and Prometheus metrics, you can see, you can install it. Let's wait for this to complete, and you can see it requires restart. So what we can do, put a slash restart here. Okay, and we can restart the server, and let's wait for this to restart it. Meanwhile it is getting restarted, what we can do, we can go here, Prometheus download page, and you can see this is the node exporter. So I can copy the IP address for Darwin, IP address for Linux. Okay, and go to the Jenkins server. Okay, so let's do one thing, let us download the package for node exporter here itself on Jenkins. We are going to monitor the system metrics of Jenkins. Okay, so we have the package ready. Now we can extract it, tar-xvf node exporter. Okay, so once this is done, let me delete the tar file. Okay, now we are left with the folder, so let us go inside the folder, and we have the node exporter executable file here, right? So let's do one thing, let us run it, and we can run it, and make sure we are using ampersand so that it runs in background. Now node exporter should be started. One second, sorry. One second, give me 1 second, let me fix this. Git Repo node exporter. Okay, I think this is executable file, it is supposed to run actually. Let me see, and ampersand. Okay, now it has started, and one more thing that you can notice here, it is running on port 9100. Okay, so we can access it, and let us see, I will get the IP address of Jenkins wherever we have installed this node exporter, right? And we can try to access it at 9100, and you can see it is running, and if I click on metrics, so it is getting the metrics also. This is good, right? Okay, next step that we need to do is basically, one second, let me see if Jenkins also restarted. Yeah, so let me log into it. And let us go to manage Jenkins system, and we should be able to see because we have installed the plugin, so we should be able to see the options of Prometheus here. Let's see. Yeah, okay, and here we have decided we have checked what we need to check. Okay, we can select like whatever we want to check, we can select here. Okay, so yeah, we don't need to make any specific changes. Next up, what we need to do, we need to add certain things inside the monitoring VM. Okay, inside Prometheus basically. So let's do one thing. Let us go inside Prometheus folder. We have the YAML file, right? So let us edit this. Okay, now what we can do, we can add a new job. Okay, so let me show you. So we have these two things where we need to we can add it as new job. Okay, and yeah, so here you can see it is written localhost 9100. Okay, instead we will write the IP address of Jenkins because we want to monitor Jenkins. Okay, so let me write it here, and make sure you don't need to put actually HTTP, and same thing we need to do here as well. And Jenkins is running on port 8080, right? So let's put that. Okay, and this is good, so I'm going to copy this and paste it somewhere here. Okay, this is black box. Okay, and this should be good. Okay, so let us save this, and we need to restart Prometheus. So what I can do, pgrep Prometheus, and we can kill this ID, kill Prometheus that is running. We have the ID details, right? And we can now restart the Prometheus. Okay, that we can do using this command and ampersand. Okay, click enter, and Prometheus should be running back now. So let's check, refresh the page. Okay, so these things are getting up, and it will take a little bit of time. And here we can see Jenkins is also up and running. Let me refresh it again, and at this point all the exporters that we have, Blackbox and Node Exporter, all of them are up and running now. Okay, so this is good, and also we are going to monitor Jenkins. So here instance we have written this. Okay, now inside Grafana we can create another dashboard. So for searching the dashboard, we can search something like let's say I'll search here Node Exporter dashboard. Okay, and we can get the IP address, sorry, we can get the ID, and go back to, sorry, let me save this dashboard. Okay, so one dashboard we have saved, right? You can see one dashboard. Let us create another dashboard for system level monitoring, and here I'll put the IP address, sorry, here I'll put the ID of the dashboard. Okay, scroll down, and here we can select Prometheus data source, and yes, now these details that you see here, these are all from our Jenkins machine. Okay, and yeah, so now all these things that you are seeing here, RAM, system load, and everything, that is coming from Jenkins. And here also other details also you can get. Okay, how much is being used, network traffic, everything we can see here, memory info, memory VM stat, and everything else, right? So this is good. And at this point we have two dashboard created. You can see one is node exporter for monitoring the system level metrics of Jenkins, and we have Prometheus black box exporter which is going to monitor the website itself. Okay, so this is good. And yeah, from your own side, what you can try to include node exporter for monitoring your website. Okay, it's not hard and it can be done very easily. You can try. Okay, so yeah, try to do that and do let me know if you face an issue. So this is how we can monitor our things. Okay, you can see it's like everything is working very fine, and yeah, it's good. Okay, so thanks for watching team, and have a nice day, and thanks for all the support.